All right, everybody, we are going to get started and we are going to get started quickly because we are starting a whole, well, it's not a new unit for you guys, but we're going to be doing a few different things with the Nutcracker. Okay, so what I want to do first, my hellos, and we're going to do Taz and T's today, but we are going to skip Arioso Land just for today. Okay, we're going to skip it just for today. So please, you guys, I'm going to sing hello. I want you to echo me and remember to use your hands. Okay, me first. Hello, boys and girls. Oh, yeah. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you. Now, go ahead and grab one of your instruments from your music kit. It can be your rhythm sticks, it can be your shaker, it could be your scarf if you really want it to be. It could be your noodles. All right, your choice. I'm choosing my sticks today. I chose my noodles last time, so I'm trying to mix it up. All right, but again, if you don't have yours with you, you can always use your hands or you can make anything around you into an instrument. Somebody in one of my last classes said that they put a paper clip or two inside of their hands and shake it and make it into a shaker. And I think that's pretty darn cool. All right, so repeat after me. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti. Ti, 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 ta, ah. Ooh. Remember, ta, ah is a click and scrape. Ta, ah, ta, ah. And I like the way that people with their scarves are going ta, ah, ta, ah. Or ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. I saw people go ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. And they were waving them back and forth to the beat. And I love that. That's perfect. Ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, ta. Ta, 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 ah. Ta, rest, rest, rest. Ta, rest, ta, rest. Ti, ti, ta, ta, ah. Ta, ah, rest, ta. That was a good one. Nice job, everybody. Ta, ah, ti, ti, rest. Ti, 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 ta, rest. Nice. Go ahead and put those away, everybody. Excuse me. All right. I did tell you that we are going to be working with the Nutcracker today. Okay. And I know that we have been listening in each of our classes when we were in school, we were listening to the different songs. And I know that we've started working on some of the songs here in our Zoom classes. But today we're going to take a little different approach and we're going to kind of start at the beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. That's actually from a very famous musical called The Sound of Music. It's one of my favorites. All right, but we're going to be starting at the beginning because I realized that some people don't know everything about the Nutcracker. And so I want you guys to have a little bit more information about it before we go. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to share my screen with all of you lovelies. Bada bang, bada boom. I'm going to share my computer sound with you too. All right, Rooney. And then we are going to go to my music page. I'm presenting it. It's going to be lovely. There we go. Can you guys all see Mrs. Porter's music room? Yes, I'm seeing thumbs up. Awesome. Well, if you go to my music room, you will be able to see this too. Over here on my bookshelf, do you guys see that there's a little Nutcracker that just appeared? Check out what happens when I click on him. Ooh. I have a whole Nutcracker room. It has a fireplace, and it has a Christmas tree and presents and a gingerbread house. It even has a picture of Mr. Tchaikovsky himself. All right. So I'm going to click on. I clicked on the little gingerbread house. Oh, nuts. I clicked on the wrong one. That's not the one I wanted for you guys. We're going to go back and try it again. We're going to go back. I'm going to click on my little guy. And then I'm actually going to click on the Nutcracker because you guys are in second grade. All right. And hey, how about that? Mrs. Porter even is in my presentation right down here. Yep, I sure am. All right, so we have already learned a whole lot about the Nutcracker, but I thought that I would take you on a little adventure with me through the Nutcracker. Now, we're not going to get through the entire adventure today, but we're going to start the adventure and we're going to keep going through our next music class or two. Okay, so we have talked already about what is the Nutcracker. And a lot of people said that they've actually seen it before. But did you know that the show, The Nutcracker, was actually first a ballet? Did you know that? Give me a thumbs up if you knew that. Or give me a thumbs down if this is something totally new. You didn't know. Oh, I'm seeing some thumbs up and some thumbs down. Okay, so this is kind of new. Now, a ballet is kind of a big deal. It's super cool. And I want to tell you all about it. Because a ballet is not just an ordinary show. A ballet is a performance unlike any other. Why? Because in a ballet, there is no talking, zero talking. In a ballet, there is zero singing. So there's a show without anybody talking to each other and a show without anybody singing. Do you know how they explain and show the story in a ballet? It's a story that's told through dance. And a lot of times in ballet, we think of ballerinas that are up on their tiptoes when they are dancing. Okay? So it's a story told through dancing. There's a little emoji of Mrs. Porter on there. That's about as close to a really good dancer as I'm going to be. All right? But I think ballet is absolutely beautiful, and I cannot wait to show you guys a little bit more. So, we have talked about how the composer of the music for the Nutcracker is, what was his name? I'm seeing people already saying it. Peter Tchaikovsky. Yes, everyone go, Peter Tchaikovsky. Oh, I even like that you did it with your hands. Peter Tchaikovsky. Yes, yes, yes. All right, so on this page, you can see that's what Peter Tchaikovsky actually looked like in real life. All right, and Peter Tchaikovsky composed, or remember we talked about a composer, somebody that writes the music. He wrote the music for the Nutcracker in 1892. That was like a really, really long time ago. Wowzers. All right, so he wrote that music so long ago, and the very first place it was performed was in his own country where he came from, and that was Russia. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever heard of Russia before. It's super far away. It is super far away. It's like by China. It's so far away. All right, so he composed the music to the Nutcracker, and they performed it in Russia. Now, something else you might not have known is that the Nutcracker, the ballet, was actually based on a book. You know how like sometimes movies will come out in a movie theater and there was like a book about it first? And it'll say, this was based on a book, or this was based on a true story. Well, the Nutcracker was based on a book called The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. All right. So they took Nutcracker and the Mouse King and they turned it in to this story through dance called a ballet. And Peter Tchaikovsky added all of his music to make it work even better. I think that's awesome. So what we're going to do today, oop, I got ahead of myself. What we're going to do today is we are actually going to listen to the story of the Nutcracker. I know that we've talked about it, I know that we've watched snippets of things, and I know that we've started working on some of the music. But what I want you guys to know today is the actual story. So this is a version of the Nutcracker, okay? Yeah.
Him through her tears and carried her.
And I want you to be able to watch the entire thing. Now, we might not get through the whole thing today. We're going to get through part of it. I will stop it before we get to the end. But I want you to be able to at least know the story behind the Nutcracker so that when we do some of our adventure, because let me tell you, I have a feeling that the Mouse King might try to kidnap me. And you guys are going to have to get me back. When we go through our adventure, I want you to know what the story's all about. Okay? So, here we go. I love the Nutcracker.
One December night, a very long time ago, a little girl named Clara was celebrating Christmas Eve in a big way. She and her brother, their parents, and all her cousins and aunts and uncles, plus the neighbors and their kids, were all there, dressed up in their Christmas best. The house was all dressed up too. It was decorated with wreaths and stockings, mistletoe, and boughs of holly. Right at the center was an enormous Christmas tree, drooping under the weight of ornaments and shiny garlands. Velvet bows and silver bells, tiny gingerbread men and candy canes, and hundreds of twinkling lights. Under the tree, piles of presents. Most were tantalizing mysteries wrapped in their Christmas paper, but some were unwrapped and on display, like the stuff grown-ups gave each other. And the army of brightly painted soldiers in their red coats with gold buttons and shiny black boots. Clara and her brother Fritz and the cousins played under the tree, creating a military parade with their toy soldiers. Clara let out a little shriek when she noticed a little mouse peeking out of a hole in the wall. And when she saw it creeping toward a box of chocolates on the floor under the tree, she sprang up to grab them. She was putting the chocolates safely on the table when she heard the door. It was her godfather. She was so proud that he was her godfather. He was a very successful toy maker, and some people even said his toys were a little bit enchanted. But Clara didn't know about that. Her godfather actually had made the very toy soldiers that they'd just been playing with, and had them delivered earlier in the day, so Clara wasn't expecting any other gifts from him. But then, her godfather announced that he had one more toy for his goddaughter. A wooden nutcracker, carved in the shape of a little toy soldier. He was painted just like the other soldiers, except he had a captain's hat and a captain's gold braid. Clara was immediately fascinated and held the nutcracker carefully. Fritz was jealous, thinking the nutcracker would make a spectacular addition to the parade under the tree. So he snatched the nutcracker out of Clara's hands, and when she tried to get it back, he and the cousins played keep away, sending the poor nutcracker flying from hand to hand all over Clara's head. She watched in horror as one toss missed its target and the Nutcracker hit the floor, broken. Clara burst into tears, but her godfather patched the Nutcracker back together with a handkerchief and patted Clara on the shoulder. There, he said. He'll be okay after a little rest. Clara thanked him through her tears and carried her wounded captain to a quiet corner. Fritz, meanwhile, was feeling pretty awful that he'd broken Clara's toy. He slunk out of the party with a plan in his mind. An hour later, he returned and shyly offered a little Nutcracker-sized wooden bed to Clara. I made it for you, for him to rest in and, get better and stuff. Clara hugged him and said thank you. Then she tucked her Nutcracker into his new little bed. As the last of the guests waved goodbye, Clara crawled beneath the tree to check on the Nutcracker one last time, and ended up falling asleep right there, curled around the little bed under the Christmas tree. At the stroke of midnight, Clara woke up. She wasn't sure what time it was. Was it Christmas yet? Had Santa come? It was still dark out, so she knew it wasn't morning. She rubbed her eyes to try to see a bit more clearly. When she looked up at the Christmas tree, she noticed, to her surprise, that it seemed to be getting bigger. In fact, the tree, the presents, the whole room seemed to be getting bigger. Or was she getting smaller? Suddenly, Clara's size became the least of her worries. Out of nowhere, gigantic mice dressed up in army uniforms began to circle the room. Clara rubbed her eyes again. She then saw that, yes, there were indeed mice in army uniforms scurrying about the room, and furthermore, there seemed to be a mouse king leading them and giving them commands. Excuse me, Clara called out. Excuse me, mice! Who are you battling exactly? Then she looked over to see that her Nutcracker had also come to life-size life, and he had grouped the other toy soldiers into a battle formation to fight the mouse army. The toy soldiers were outnumbered, but they fought the mice bravely as the Mouse King and the Nutcracker captain faced off in a one-on-one sword fight. The rest of the mice closed in around the king and the Nutcracker, biting at his feet and making him stumble. Clara could see that the Mouse King was just about to deliver a terrible blow when she made a desperate move to save her Nutcracker. She threw her slipper at the Mouse King. It hit him directly on the head, leaving him dizzy and stunned. Now an easy target for the Nutcracker. He proclaimed victory and thanked his troops, and the mouse army picked up their dazed king and carried him away. Clara had been hiding under the Nutcracker's bed, which now seemed to look more like a sleigh than a bed. Snow was falling, which was weird because they were indoors. And the snow wasn't cold somehow, but boy, was it sparkly. She looked over at her Nutcracker and did a little double take. He was still dressed in his red and gold soldier's uniform, but instead of a round wooden head and painted eyes, she saw a handsome young prince. The prince helped Clara into the magical sleigh, and it began to move deeper into the forest, while the most beautiful snowflakes she'd ever seen danced and swirled all around them. The snowflakes led them all the way through the snow forest into what appeared to be an entire kingdom made of desserts. Everywhere, desserts, sweets, candies, every imaginable treat, cake, candy, and confection you could possibly think of. There were mountains of immense chocolate cookies topped with whipped cream whiter than snow, glittering flowers made out of sugar and buttercream frosting everywhere she looked. As the sleigh came to a stop, Clara heard what sounded like the tinkling bells of a music box, the kind with a tiny perfect ballerina who danced on the tip of her toes. And then she saw the perfect ballerina. She looked like she was covered in tiny diamonds. But Clara realized with surprise that her dress and tiara and even her shoes were made from sparkling white sugar. She was the Sugar Plum Fairy, and she invited them to a grand feast to welcome them to the kingdom of sweets. Clara and the prince were seated on a huge plush rug on the floor, and then the dancing began. Dancers from Spain spun into the room. Leaping and twirling as they brought the guests mugs filled with hot cocoa made from rich Spanish chocolate. Arabian women in veils danced like rising steam as they offered Clara and the prince hot Arabian coffee. Chinese dancers delivered Mandarin tea. Then, Russian men in fur hats and loud boots sprang into the room to deliver candy canes. Sweet shepherdesses with blonde braids and rosy cheeks brought their gift of the almond sugar known as marzipan. And then a ruckus. A giant gingerbread woman called Mother Ginger danced in. 8 little ginger children came tumbling out from under the frosting ruffles of her gingerbread skirt and danced the silliest, sweetest dance. Then, the dreamy sound of a harp announced the entrance of an entire garland of flowers. Who danced in beautiful, mesmerizing patterns as a single dewdrop floated above them. Clara thought it was the most wonderful waltz she'd ever heard.
All right, boys and girls, sadly, I have to stop us there. All right, but when we come back on Thursday, we only have about 3 or 4 minutes left of our story, and then we are going to jump right into our Nutcracker adventure. All right, so be prepared because there are going to be dances and moves to things that we have not done before, not any classes in second grade. So get ready. Make sure that if you can, that you have your music kits ready with you next time. All right, because we will be using them on Thursday. All right. So for right now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you all in a few days. All right, me first, then you. Goodbye, boys and girls. Nice job, everyone. I will see you all on Thursday. Have a wonderful Monday. See you later. Bye.